Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Danny Taylor, co-owner of Vegan Proteins Online Coaching. And today we are going to be talking about a question that I've gotten kind of a fair amount, especially recently for whatever reason, which is, can you lose weight without tracking your food? And I think this is a great question. I've gotten it from a lot of people. Some people just don't like tracking, just think it's a pain in the butt, don't want to do it. Some people have a history of disordered eating, and the idea of tracking and numbers and all of that may be triggering for them back down a bad path. So in those particular situations, sometimes people don't actually have any weight to lose, and the question, should you even be thinking about losing weight, is a good question to ask. In other cases, people have healed from their eating disorders, but are still larger than they would like to be, or than their doctor tells them is healthy, and they want to be smaller for their own health, for their own self-confidence in a healthy, non-disordered kind of a way. So that is the particular group of people that I am thinking of when I make this video today. Okay, so the hard fact is that you cannot lose weight without being in a caloric deficit, without eating fewer calories than you burn. That is the only time you will lose weight. That is the only way anybody in history has ever lost weight before. However, this does not mean that you have to track numbers in order to create a caloric deficit. So this is a pro and a con. A lot of people want me to give them a trick where they can lose weight without being in a caloric deficit. It's not possible. You can't do it. However, there are so many different ways to create a caloric deficit, and we're going to talk about some of those that don't include tracking today. So first of all, what is the problem with tracking? Well, I already touched upon it a little bit at first. One, it's annoying. It's tedious. I have tracked my food on and off since I started my fitness journey, 17 years ago or something like that. I am not always tracking my food. In fact, right now, I'm not tracking my food at all. But there have been tons of periods where I've tracked my food for, sometimes even a couple of years pretty meticulously to make sure that I was on track. And there's no question about it, it's annoying. It's a pain to pull out your scale or your measuring cup. It's a pain to pull out your app and plug it in. So just that in and of itself, even when you get really, really good at it, it shouldn't take more than like an additional 5 to 7 minutes a day. But still, that's 5 to 7 minutes a day. And sometimes it's just like a reminder that you're like on a diet, or a reminder of things you can't or shouldn't have. I don't think you should frame it like that, but let's just be real. That happens for a lot of people. So there's that. There is also the fact that when it comes to tracking, we are notoriously bad at it. We're just not good at accurately keeping track of what we're eating, even when we are tracking. In a study of women who were claiming to be eating 1,200 calories a day, that's what they were reporting, 1,200 calories a day. On average, they were actually eating 2,500 calories a day. Now, this isn't necessarily deliberate. It's not like someone is just lying saying, I'm eating 1,200 calories a day, when really they're sneaking an additional 1,300 calories. We're just not good at tracking things. We're not good at honestly recording what it is we've eaten. We forget little things that we've had throughout the day, and then we don't keep track of them. So if you're tracking in this particular way where you're missing things pretty frequently, it can actually encourage you to end up eating more by doing it this way. Also, food labels are notoriously inaccurate. I believe in the United States, they're allowed to be off by up to 20%, which is a huge amount, especially when you're trying to be really precise. So you always kind of have that working against you. A lot of times tracking food can inspire the wrong kind of mindset where you're only paying attention to quantity of calories, quantity of carbs, fats, protein, and you're completely ignoring the quality of the food that you're taking in general, or completely overlooking the micronutrients that you're taking in. So in some ways, tracking can inspire a negative mindset. And also, and this is a controversial opinion of myself, because I do believe there are also huge benefits to tracking your food. But much like everything else about nutrition and fitness, nothing is one size fits all. That's so important to understand. There is no piece of advice that I have ever given that I would say, yes, you should apply this to every human being on earth. No, not even ones that you would think would be very, very general. Everything is nuanced, everyone is different, and for some people whose only goal is to get healthier, to get a bit fitter, to be able to play around with their kids or climb a flight of stairs without huffing and puffing, tracking is just not necessary for them. And if you guys know anything about me at all, I'm a big fan of the minimum effective dose. How much exercise, attention to detail when it comes to nutrition do we actually need to get the desired result? Because that's how much we should be doing, not necessarily more. This is not a more is better situation. So not everybody needs to track. But what should those folks do who do want to lose some weight, get healthier, but they don't want to track their food? What should they do? Side note here, any diet on earth that promises that you can lose weight without tracking food is just, they're sneaking a caloric deficit in there. They're finding some way to sneak in a caloric deficit, whether that's intermittent fasting. Why does that work? Because most people are skipping breakfast and that's like 400 calories right off the top. Keto, you just cut out an entire food group. All of these things create a caloric deficit. That's it. So even though you're not tracking your food per se, you've still created a caloric deficit. So these are just some general tips or ideas that basically do the same thing. They're simple things that you can do throughout the day without logging a single number to help yourself create a caloric deficit kind of sneakily, kind of in the background. And these are some things that I have done in the past. They have worked for me. None of these tips are magic. They all work by helping to create a caloric deficit. My very first tip to help you here is to eliminate liquid calories. So if you drink sodas or juices or really fancy coffee drinks or something like that, try to replace them with drinks that don't contain calories. Water, seltzer water, coffee with I cannot do black coffee. I will never advocate for black coffee, but coffee just with some soy milk or stevia. Diet sodas like Zevias are all great substitutes for more caloric drinks. And if you can find a few that you like, once you've kind of swapped them out, you don't have to think about this anymore. For some people who are just starting their fitness journey, this alone can yield results for a long time. I have worked with some folks, some friends and family who started on the much larger side, who came to me with the desire to lose weight. I said, we're just going to stop drinking soda. And some of them lost like 8 or 9 pounds in the first week. Now, granted, again, they were on the larger side to start with, but this is a very simple tip right here. Along that same line is to make sure that you're really, really hydrated. When your body is fully hydrated, it can actually increase your metabolism by anywhere from 3 to 10%. Now, 3 doesn't sound like a lot, 10 sounds like a ton to me, but whatever. A hydrated body is a happy body, is a healthy body. You're less likely to confuse your thirst for hunger. And also, a hydrated muscle is an anabolic muscle. If you're interested at all in building muscle, dehydrated muscles, not going to do a very good job at this. So drink plenty of fluids. The next two are sort of meal tips. I've done them both. I don't think you have to do both of them at the same time, but you could try one of these and see what works for you. One of the easiest ways that I've ever kind of made a caloric deficit without really paying attention is to have my dinner be protein and non-starchy vegetables and nothing else. Now, you could do this with lunch. I just do it with a meal that I don't really care about. So for me, that looks like, seitan with broccoli. It could be a salad with some vinegar and lemon juice and some tofu on top of it. That is just a very simple meal, one meal throughout the day. Do not do this to all your meals. This is a really good way to accidentally undereat tremendously. But if you swap out one of your meals that's normally like protein, vegetable, starchy carbohydrate, fat source to just protein and vegetables, that alone could be enough to really roll the ball forward without thinking about it at all. And then you don't really have to change any of your other meals at all. The other one that I've tried is to alternate what I pair my protein with. So on Vegan Proteins, that's what we do. I like protein and I prioritize it throughout my day. If you are somebody that does that, having pairing one meal, the protein with a carb, and the next meal, protein and a fat. The next meal, protein and a carb, the next meal, protein and a fat. This is a really easy way to do it. So this could be something like tofu scramble with avocado at breakfast and seitan and rice and veggies for lunch, etc., etc. Because most meals generally It's when we pair carbohydrates and fats together that it becomes super, super yummy. You think of any food that you absolutely like start eating and can't stop eating, carbohydrates and fats are paired together. It makes it hyper palatable. So when you kind of split the carbs and fats up throughout the day, it's not quite as snackable. So you tend to eat a little bit less of it. The next one is kind of a duh one, but it really does make a big difference. If you're someone who eats out a lot, eat out a little bit less. If you normally go out to eat 4 times a week, try going out to eat twice a week. Even when we go out to eat with the best of intentions, it is really hard to have a sensible meal in a restaurant as a vegan in 2022 in the United States. Now, I don't know if you're any of those things. You could be watching this in the year 2060 for all I know, but it's really hard in the United States to get a reasonable meal out. So even when you're trying to do all the things, oh, go light on the oil, put the dressing on the side, it's still very hard to, one, know what you're eating at all, because the guy in the back doesn't care that you're trying to get healthier. He wants to make the food as yummy as possible so you come back and spend more of your money. Just eating out a couple less times per week, generally speaking, is going to make it so you consume fewer calories. Along the same lines, eating fewer processed foods. Now, processed foods generally are not like super health promoting foods or anything like that, so I'm not going to sit here and say that they are. However, processed foods are also generally, they're not evil when it comes to losing weight or losing body fat. If you know what you're taking in, you can work in some processed foods into your life and get shredded. You can do it. This requires tracking. We're trying not to track here. So generally speaking, those processed foods are the hyperpalatable foods that I was just talking about. They're loaded with carbs, fats, salts, sugars, all these things that make it really hard to stop eating them. So if you eat fewer of those things throughout the day, you're going to consume fewer calories. So just trying to keep those foods limited or out of your house or out of your sight or something is going to help you without having to track anything. You can also try to space your meals out a little bit more. So this is actually, in my opinion, this is mostly what intermittent fasting is. And I guess by that definition, I intermittent fast because I don't have my first meal until like 11 or 11:30 in the morning. Not because I'm intermittent fasting, just because I prefer to have more of my food at the end of the day. I'm not really hungry in the morning, so that works for me. But if you can push your breakfast off a little bit later, that can be helpful. If you could space out, between your lunch and dinner, that can be helpful. Or if you can stop eating after dinner, that can be helpful. All of those things can help as well. So we've talked about a bunch of ways to take in fewer calories, but there's also another way to create a caloric deficit, and that is to spend more calories. So this one I think is more fun, in my opinion, and the very short tip is to move more. This doesn't mean that you need to go to the gym every single day or you need to do a ton of cardio or anything like that. It literally means move more. Like get up and move throughout your house more frequently. Make things kind of inconvenient for you in your house so you have to make multiple trips to do things. Park in the back of the parking lot when you go to the store. Take the stairs. Go for a walk after your dinner. All of these things that sound so small and so trite, they add up to a lot inside of a day. All those little things that I just said, that could easily add up to an additional like 200 to 250 calories burned in a day. That just chops right away at that deficit, if that's more than what you normally do in a day. So that's really, really great. And that's called NEAT, non-exercise activity. It is my favorite way to increase my caloric output. It's not to get on a treadmill and run for 20 straight minutes. It's to call my aunt and go for a walk around my block while I'm talking to her. Like, it's very simple, it's easy, it's pleasant. It generally makes you feel better. And if you do this enough over time, it becomes a habit, which is awesome. And then one more tip that doesn't directly contribute to creating a caloric deficit, but it kind of does in a very roundabout way, is to make sure you're getting enough sleep. When we don't get enough sleep, you are so much more susceptible to cravings, to stress eating, to lounging around your house because you're exhausted. And it can also do some not awesome things to your hormones, to your mood. Getting enough sleep is super, super important for pretty much every single function in your body, but it's one thing that you can do to help yourself create a caloric deficit without tracking. So hopefully these tips were helpful. You don't have to do all of these at once. That's really important. This is not a list that I think people should just check off and do all of them at the same time. Literally, you could do 1 or 2 of these things and every single one will move the needle in the direction that you're trying to go. So if tracking is just not in the cards for you, you could try any one of these things, but remember, none of it is a one-size-fits-all approach. You are unique to the person next to you, to the person next to you. Every single person watching this is a unique person and probably has slightly different needs to meet their goals. So if you are confused about what you should do, feel free to check out veganproteins.com, fill out a coaching application. I'll leave the link down below. You fill it out, we look at it, we say, hey, this person may or may not be a good fit for us. We ask you a few more questions, and then we see if you are interested and if it's a good fit for us and for you. So if that's something, if you're curious and you want more like hands-on one-on-one help, that's what we do. That's what we do all day, every day. YouTube videos, that's like a fun thing that I do on the side because I enjoy it. Coaching people one-on-one, that's my full-time job. That's my husband's full-time job. That's our coach Athena's full-time job. Like, that's what we do. So if you're interested, the application's below. Let us know if you have any questions. If you like this video, be sure to like this video, hit the bell, subscribe, all the things I'm supposed to tell you to do at the end of a video, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.